So Beetlejuice Beetlejuice for me was a solid movie, and even though this movie wasn't as good as the original, I do believe this was still a good film and probably funnier than the original. Even though it weren't as good, it was funnier than the original. However, what I would say, the weird and wacky nature that the original one brought and the uncomplicated storyline that the original one brought, and it felt so simple, was probably the reason why that one's better. And that also could be nostalgia kicking in a little bit as well, thinking that that one was better. I don't know. But I don't think this one is on the level of Beetlejuice 1. What I would say though to those people that think this movie is fucking mental, this isn't even the most fucked up Tim Burton movie out there. I thought singing equaled happiness, not singing equaled cutting people up and chucking them in a fucking pie. What has this world come to, man?
Just a sick world we're living in, sick people.
I think the story was utterly bonkers. I'm not gonna lie, I think this was utterly fucking bonkers. As this one's 10 times more complicated than the original Beetlejuice because it had 3 fucking major plot lines which are totally different from each other but could have headlined the movie by themselves. The first one being Beetlejuice and his ex-wife and the story of the backstory of how they met, who Beetlejuice is, and how Beetlejuice died, which is something we never knew before this movie, and we didn't find out in the original Beetlejuice neither. And it was really interesting that because that opened us up to who is Beetlejuice and who his ex-wife was, because his ex-wife was mentioned, not the actual name, but he mentioned that he had an ex-wife when he was trying to marry Lydia in the first movie. So this was all great stuff to see and something that we expected to see in the second movie, I'm not gonna lie. But then obviously having Dolores as a major villain in this particular movie, wanting to kill Beetlejuice because Beetlejuice killed her when she was trying to kill him. Bit wild, I know, but that's the whole plot. And then she goes around killing random people. And Danny DeVito, his appearance in this movie is shorter than his height, let's be honest. The second major plot line, which could have been its own film as well, was the Jeremy and Astrid love story thing where they met accidentally and Jeremy leads her on like thinking, oh, it's this nice boyfriend, girlfriend type thing, this little side angle. However, Jeremy wanted his life back because he was actually dead and Astrid didn't know she was seeing a dead person until he was revealed, oh, I'm dead, whatever, but I can help you find your dad in the afterworld. You just got to say what's in this book and then we can walk through this door and then we can go see your dad. However, all he was trying to do was get his life back because he was a fucking murderer that accidentally broke his neck and was stuck in a tree house, and she came along and basically was his saviour because then he then took her into the afterlife and basically exchanged roles with her so that she now was dead and that he was now alive and on the run practically as a murderer, which is bonkers again, but that could have been its own story. Then you had the actual death of Charles Dietz and the story around the family suffering without Charles Dietz as well. You had all these 3 main stories that could have been its own thing. The Charles Dietz thing might have had to be a secondary plot alongside something, so maybe if you'd have picked one of the other 2 and had Charles Dietz's death as well. However, with those 3 major plots, it nearly turned into Spider-Man 3. No, not fucking Peter Parker dancing, for fuck's sake, wrong clip. Obviously, it was meant to be the overcrowding Spider-Man 3. Fuck's sake, you had one fucking job. But in all seriousness, I do believe they managed all 3 of these main plots quite well. Not the best that they could have done, but quite well. And Tim Burton's fucking mental anyways, so he would have made this fucking work, all these different plot lines connect, and which he did, and he managed to do that, as well as a little subplot of Lydia and her daughter's little fractured relationship, in which is something else that was worth talking about as well, which was good. However, what I would say is though, I was slightly disappointed because it had that same Spider-Man 3 vibe with the villains, where all 3 of the villains, in my opinion, which are villains, didn't get the chance to exploit all their villainary traits. If they had had a full movie of each one, like say, if Jeremy had had his own movie, he would have been exploited better. He would have been able to show how evil he was and build up that story even bigger and even better, because that weren't a subplot in my opinion. I think you could have ran with that as the entire film of Jeremy trying to steal a life really and try to trick Astrid into giving up her life so that he could live again as a fucking murderer. I think with the Dolores thing, she underperformed near the ending, which we'll get onto later on. But throughout the film, it was great seeing she was killing people, trying to find Beetlejuice, and that's what it was all about. And she could have had a main film just about her with Beetlejuice, and that would have worked as well. But again, they tried to cram in a few things and the villain didn't really come out as great as that they should have done. And then the third one is kind of Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice always sits on the fence. He isn't a good guy, but he isn't a bad guy neither. He sort of sits on the fence and gets involved in both. He helps people out, but he wants something in return. Most of the time, just marrying Lydia, let's be honest. But yeah, this is the thing. And I think that is why I think that having those three villains in the same film weren't bad, but it weren't necessarily good either, because you didn't really get to see how evil those villains could be on their biggest day. Obviously, Beetlejuice, he's always going to sit on the fence, but the other two in particular could have had their own movie, in my opinion, or should have been focused on in one film without the other distractions around them. With the ending, again, a lot of stuff fucking happened. As we saw Beetlejuice trying to marry Lydia again, like we saw at the end of the first movie, but this time he fails because he broke rules in trying to marry Lydia. Also, we saw Dolores be eaten by a sandworm in the weakest manner possible, because she just walks through the door, you think shit's gonna go down, and it does go down. It goes down into the fucking floor when this sandworm fucking eats her, and also the boyfriend of Lydia, who nobody gives a fuck about. Then we see Lydia's fucked up bizarre dream that only Tim Burton could have thought about, which was of her daughter having looks like it could be a nice family, as she's just met somebody and it looks like she's got pregnant, and then it turns out to be a tiny fucking Beetlejuice, and it's like, what the fuck is this ending? If they'd left it there, that would have been mind-blowing. That would have been like, what the fuck is this ending? However, then it turns out it's Lydia's dream, and it's a dream in a dream, and then she wakes up, and then that's how the film ends. Before we jump back into this video, guys, please do us a massive favour and smash that subscribe button, because you do not want to miss a thing this week, next week, and the week after, because we've got tons and tons of content planned for you guys, and you can do us a massive favour by smashing that subscribe button, joining the community, getting updates to all the latest videos, from the YouTube shorts to the actual videos. It is well worth it, completely free, and you will not regret it. So to summarise, Beetlejuice for me, a solid movie, 7.2 out of 10, and a great film. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments down below. Good, bad, terrible, amazing. Let us know all that jazz down those comments down below. And if you haven't checked out our Beetlejuice movie review, check that out right now.